Hail cheaters, welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
Happy festive fixtures, Josh. It's
likewise.
like true holiday podcasting in that I am in my dad's office.
I wondered.
Now.
I thought that was either a bathroom or your dad's office.
Yeah.
We've decided not to do this one on YouTube. It's just a little too chaotic. I have an inflatable bed directly behind me right now. I actually cannot take a single step backwards or I'll step right onto it.
Actually, I would like to catch that on YouTube of you falling backwards into an
that would
inflatable
be good.
mattress.
Yeah, I think we might still get some video from this, if anything amazing
We
happens.
could turn that into a viral ad for Bukayo Saka where he needs somebody with an inflatable mattress following him around the pitch so he has something to break his fall.
I like that we're exactly. We'll talk about Saka in a second. I like that we're 10 years into this pod and we're still, we still find a way. Brandon, how many hundreds of episodes have we put into the can now?
To just slowly break ice before we start talking about FPL.
Yeah, exactly. How many phases of life have we gone through? And we're still here. It's the festive fixtures. I think this is going to end up being the last one for the festive fixture period. It just gets too hard to crank these things out, right? Like when we're all in this state of chaos, and also things are going to kick up. I will say it's actually a little less chaotic than we've seen in previous years. I think because of the Wednesday Christmas, right? And so you sort of have what is a somewhat more cleaner holiday, mix where you have Boxing Day will kick off on Thursday, of course. I think 8 teams play, and then 2 are on Friday, and then I think the next round of fixture. I could quit saying I think because I can literally just pull them up as I'm talking here. Yeah, so we've got Boxing Day, game week 18 kicks off on Thursday, and then that ends with 2 late matches on Friday. Arsenal play at what would be 3:15 UK time or 8:15 our time here in the United States, or vice versa. Brandon, 3:15 our time, 8:15 UK time, and then actually Saturday is off. No Premier League on Saturday. I don't know. It's like the broadcaster's version of Boxing Day or something. And then you have matches on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. Sure, that makes that like as you do. And so no matches on New Year's Eve, right? But New Year's Day is fine. So it sounds like I'm being. I didn't plan to be. I'm walking through what's going on here. So you have matches on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday. And then the following Saturday, you've got game week 20. So this is going to be our final pod before
just ever.
until I guess the evening of Sunday, January 5th. We'll come back for that one. So you'll see us in the new year after this pod, Brandon.
On that, just give me a quick. How do you try to compartmentalize for a period like this?
Mm-hmm.
As the fixtures build up, we also are doing family stuff. It's the holidays. Our minds are elsewhere. So as you think about the week ahead, is it like for you just, I'm going to take 30 minutes before I go to bed to make sure my team is good to go for the next day sort of a thing?
It's a good question.
How plugged in are you planning to be?
Well, certainly plugged in enough that, last week was chaotic because I had family from overseas arriving, so lots of planning and organizing around that. And I guess I feel like it could have been anywhere. I don't know why
Trump's
overseas.
America. You got
was that like a brag? I didn't really mean it that way, but there was. I guess it just means like it's a longer they stay longer. It's like there's more
you got to make it worth their while too, don't you?
Yeah. Exactly. And when they get out of the airport, how long is it going to take? Because they're going to go through customs, just a lot more planning involved. And then I had a cold for 4 days. So it was a great test, Brandon. It was like a dry run for the festive fixtures.
Okay.
I ended up making a transfer in real time on our Patreon pod on Thursday. And I brought in Isak for Solanke, which was I netted 8. I looked like it was going to net like 15, and then Solanke picked up a late goal and assist in that pretty chaotic Spurs Liverpool match.
That's who we are, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So goal assist, no bonus, because hard to get bonus when 10 goals have been spread across, or 9 goals, whatever. I think it was 9, spread across. A very weird Sunday, which we talk more about in a second. 6 clean sheets today, a couple 0-0s. Like the word, like how can you have 4 Sunday morning fixtures and none of them are good? Like that's a rare, or I don't know, maybe good. Maybe it's the eye of the beholder.
Eye of the beholder there, right?
Yeah, that's true. If you're a Wolves supporter, it was awesome. Or Bournemouth for that matter.
Yes.
Yeah. If you were somewhere from the south visiting somewhere further north, you might have been happy about what happened today. So, yeah. And so I think for me, I guess I just I feel like I compartmentalize a little bit, right? There's always that moment. I often do a lot of this stuff in bed, to be totally honest. It'd be like 11 o'clock at night and I'll check my phone. I mean, no, I don't mean like I'll make all my decisions, but it's like I'll sort of lock in, like on a Friday evening. It's like, wait, do I have everything right here? And it's sort of, have I done everything I was supposed to do? Is my team completely set? Very important in the US too, right? Because it's kind of our last chance. Unless you are certain you're going to wake up early enough, like 5 a.m., which you do more than me, weirdly, even though you sleep in later than I do.
Occasionally, like if I've got a big time decision for my fantasy team, I will. It is, I think for me, maybe I'm special because it's easy for me to turn on and then off again at 5 a.m.
Right,
I can wake up, do my thing, and fall back asleep. That's no issue.
And I can't do that. If I'm up at 5 a.m. looking for team news, I'm just up for the next the rest of the day, basically. So,
but I identify with what you're saying there of the tactic of just find a time where you can lock in for, be it 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Right. And go
you can do it all on your phone these days, right? It's like, you can do it on the toilet, Brandon. There's like so many times.
You lock in wherever you want. Lock in on the go.
Yeah, exactly. So it was an interesting game week for sure. I think it was like a very extreme game week, I would say. I basically had 2 players that did anything for me, with the Robinson clean sheet tossed in, and then just blanks all around, right? And those 2 players, their effective ownership was just low enough, right, that it was enough for me to. It was basically like a wash. Like it's like I had a gray. Like I was down a little bit in overall rank. I was sort of down relative to a lot of my mini leagues, right? I think I ended up finishing on 78 points. Yeah, I'm just double checking as we talk here. Yeah, 78 points. So yeah, it was fine. I feel like a lot of people were in kind of the same boat. I'd say the biggest disappointment for me, well, 2. One would be Raul didn't even start this match, and I sort of by the way, this is another reminder: don't hold an underperforming player because they have a good fixture coming up. This is like this is like come back to haunt me again and again and again over the years. I'm amazed that I still make this blunder. So Raul comes on late as a substitute, immediately gets a yellow, and I finish on 0 points. Meanwhile, I'm staring at 14 points from Rodgers in my first bench position, and then Kirkaz, who I wouldn't have started. He was actually the end of my bench, but he picks up a clean sheet as well. So 20 points on my bench. I think that might equal the combined returns. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. In fact, you can include Robinson in this. I have more points from Rodgers and Kirkaz on the bench than I do from everybody that is not Salah and Isak on my team combined. So nine outfield players combined are less than those 2 bench players. So, but again, it's fine. I'm at like 501K overall. It's fine. Like it's there are 11 million players in the game, Brandon. That puts me in the top 120 seconds or whatever that.
It's a platform, Josh, you can work from.
Exactly. It's fine. And like I was doing much worse at this time last year. So it's like I haven't quite gotten back to my previous highs, Brandon. I mean, I hope to one day soon. But I'm at least like the ship is now pointing in the right direction again. So I'll take it. And obviously the big decision that I have now is around Saka. I really feel like I have multiple decisions because the Raul situation is a mess, and I actually even João Pedro is not a problem I will be solving this week, but I feels like it needs to get solved soon because he is.
You're basically just waiting for Brighton to get a penalty, and that's the only hope with João Pedro at the moment.
I'm like watching these. I watched, I think, the entire Brighton match, or almost all of it, yesterday, and it's like I feel like I'm still mourning the peak De Zerbi a little bit. Like I know Brighton are having a very good season, but there was something about peak De Zerbi right before he kind of checked out where they were so fun, and it just feels like we're not quite like. I'm not. Maybe it's the loss of Welbeck or something, but I found them to be kind of predictable in attack yesterday, and it wasn't a very exciting performance.
The goal that was scored too, Pedro was basically in the stands. He was so far left.
He was
celebrating like he was a spectator when the goal went in.
Ferguson might start getting some starts, right? I mean,
interesting rumor about Ferguson that it seems like his agent is sniffing around looking for a loan move for him in January.
Yeah,
and Fulham was actually on that list. I'm not sure if any party benefits from that, because Ferguson would be walking into another situation where there's competition.
Yeah,
and so I'm curious to see if Ferguson can impact Brighton at all this season.
I mean, Fulham have a forward problem. I mean, I don't know, like half the Premier League. There's four problems.
Just look at our fantasy teams. It's just like there are no forwards at the moment, except for Isak, of course.
Yeah, except for Isak. Yeah, and so he came through with the hat trick. And honestly, I could have had more. I mean, there was a real one-sided match. I was surprised by just how good Newcastle looked in that match. And so why don't we talk about you, though? Because I think you finished on 88 points. I think you finished.
I finished on 89 points because Hall got a cheeky bonus point.
What is going on with the bonus? Like, just don't even show us what the bonus points are if they're going to change this much. It's like, what is the deal? Like, it's
I'm just gonna put my team up on the screen because I've got new guys.
For me, I know it's an audio only pod this week, but I can see it at least. Yeah.
So much as we've just been teasing this wild card for a long time, Josh, and finally its time came, and it was
sneaky wild card.
It was price rises that kind of triggered it for me. Isak and Gabriel were the two players that I felt like I really wanted, and also, like, to sweeten the deal, I had 2 free transfers going into this game week, and now I played a wild card, and lo and behold, I have 2 free transfers still. So that's just a reminder to everybody that that's a new twist in the game, which is amazing.
Yeah, so I think that is often forgotten, actually. We talked about a little bit about the Patriot, because this was a surprise. You had not gone into last Sunday's pod planning to wildcard, and it was
and coming off of that podcast, ultimately the transfers I wanted to make were Hall in for Porro and Isak in for Delap, and I was 0.1 short of that. And while I was hemming and hawing about how I was going to do that, Gabriel's price was about to go up, and I was kind of like, duh, come on, just play the wild card. Let's go. So from that, the changes I made were bringing in Gabriel, of course, and then Lewis Hall. Isak came in, and I decided to leave the triple up in the midfield as it was with Salah, Saka, and Palmer. I mean, that's
sure.
That was pretty obvious.
I didn't raise my eyebrows too much when when we talked about it on Thursday.
The trick was then, what do I do with the rest of the midfield? And you had Ahmad, who was really he was the flavor of the week coming out of last game week, and he did well in the League Cup against Spurs, even though Manchester United lost that match. So I picked him up, and so I have basically a very imbalanced midfield with 3 premium guys and then Morgan Rogers and Ahmad. Like you, the one mistake I made this week was I played Ahmad over Rogers, and let's stick a pin
only in
that.
Hindsight, right? It felt like a pretty logical move, all things considered.
Right. Rogers has been inconsistent. He's had a great season, but as far as fantasy goes, he's been inconsistent. Whereas Ahmad he's honestly, even compared to Morgan Rogers, kind of an unknown quantity. But for what we do know of him, he's been relatively consistent with fantasy returns. So I agree. He felt like the better start. Now we kind of have to start thinking about, well, is Man City just like a targetable
fixture? I'll pull up Andrew Sigel, one of our Patreon supporters, had a question for us on the Discord, and he said, when will FPL Towers do the right thing and downgrade City from red to gray on the fixture difficulty radar? They can't defend. We should be targeting them with our attacking assets. And I agree. I think, I'm wondering, I don't know, again, so easy with hindsight to think this stuff through. I felt okay benching Rodgers this week. I didn't really think too much about it, but the alternative would have been, I don't know, like I'm just looking at your team, similar to mine in some ways. I mean, João Pedro, it's like maybe, but like West Ham have certainly been known to give up lots of goals, right? Yep. And I don't know. Yeah, I think it would have been, Nicholas Jackson. I don't know, maybe again, but like Everton, like despite their home prowess, are
they have been bad on occasion.
Yeah, they have been bad on multiple occasions.
But now Everton is coming off of back-to-back clean sheets against the two most, I guess, save Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea. Just incredibly attacking teams.
Yeah, so you left even more points on your bench. I'm looking now.
24 points on my bench.
Yeah.
So exactly. this was like the galaxy brain part of my wild card was the goalkeeper and defense. So coming into the wild card, I had Timber. Yeah, and I figured I would end up with your formulation with Timber and Gabriel. Yeah. And then I was kind of looking at this where it started to make me feel like hemmed in to know that every game week I'm going to have only one non-Arsenal defender effectively that I'm starting, and then a crap goalkeeper, somebody like Dean Henderson. So I changed it up so that I have Raya in goal in place of Timber in the defense, and then that allows me to rotate in the defense. So like this week I started Gabriel, Robinson, and Lewis Hall. Sure. And now I have Mikolenko and O'Shea on my bench. O'Shea we will never talk about him again, apart from me just mentioning his name. Yeah. But talking about Everton again, Mikolenko is just incredible value at 4.3 for an Everton team that looks like they were going to clean sheet like at least twice a month. Yeah. Every other game week. At
least at home, right? Yeah. Although they kept a clean sheet away to Arsenal too. So, yep.
So I'm liking this setup so far. I just felt like the attacking returns from Timber, while they've been decent enough recently, weren't enough for me to justify playing a crap goalkeeper week in, week out. Now, I know you have strong opinions about overpaying for goalkeepers, but this just felt like a better balance for me.
Yeah, I mean, normally I would tease you about this. I mean, I will say I've seen enough people with the Raya, including Mikel Takvim, right, Brandon? One of the stat people that I really appreciate and respect. Right. And so
from the transfer algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. And so, this is one where I can understand it a little bit, just because Arsenal in some ways are one of the only teams that can actually defend. I suppose Jordan Pickford maybe should have been in the conversation there as well. But then I can see how it sort of cascades down from there. And then you're like, well, now I only have one Arsenal defender again, unless you go back and it's an interesting thing because I don't know. I guess it worked this week, right, with the sort of balanced, cheap defenders. So
it felt rocky at the start with Morgan Rogers on my bench, but overall, I'm thrilled with how it went as I finished on 89 and I moved up 85,000 spots, new rank 236K.
Excellent.
So 2 red arrows in a row, and now I'm at my best OR of the season and going up. And the Saka thing just suddenly creates an interesting wrinkle here. Yeah. And normally I would be obviously very skeptical of Saka injury news, but because these matches are coming so quickly over the festive period, there's just
we really have no choice.
Conceivable way in which he's going to play maybe in the next 2 games.
No, probably 3, right? And so, normally I do like to keep us on in my little structured running order here, Brandon. But I think in this case, we can go ahead and pull this up. And the big question that we got repeatedly from people in the Discord and elsewhere was what to do with Saka, right? Who the replacements might be. And so for anyone who wasn't watching the match, he went down, I don't know, it was like 30th minute, something like that, with the hamstring complaint. It's just something we've seen, off the ball, right? So just like very, you never want to see it. It's an almost guaranteed multiple weeks out. There's almost, I can't think of a single time in all the years I've been doing the podcast where somebody went down with a hamstring injury and then played like 4 days later, right? It just does not happen. So
Wolverine did it once when he was playing for.
You got to have a mutant healing factor, though. And ideally an adamantium secured,
it's helpful
skeleton as well. Exactly. So without that, it's going to be tricky. And so the question then is, okay, so we have this opportunity now to replace Saka. Are we all going to go the same way? Is there an opportunity here for some creativity or not? And
are we all getting Bruno Fernandes? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, let me walk you through my thought process. Okay. Bruno in some ways would be the obvious replacement, right? There's a sort of somewhat like for like idea there with him, right? He's sort of in that quasi premium price tier. He blanked today, but he's been in a fairly good run of form otherwise. It's sort of like there's something we said too for like kind of keeping someone in a similar price slot. Like sometimes just makes it easy to move back.
Prevents you from then moving the money in all corners of your team, and then suddenly you're 2 or 3 transfers away from getting Saka back in.
Yeah, and I don't even really know where I'd go with that money if I went too far away. Anyway, I guess you could consider burning 4, right? And then you could maybe or making 2 moves over 2 weeks to get Trent Alexander-Arnold in, and that could be one move, and then someone like a mod would be a replacement that you could consider, or kind of anybody really. So I think that Bruno would be a strong candidate. Man United play away to Wolves on Boxing Day. Makes a lot of sense. Their run after that is, I think, it's a little harder, right? Newcastle at home and Liverpool away. So really, when you get him for this 3-week run, you're really getting one good match, one 5 out of 10 kind of match, and then one like 0 out of 10, right? Like quite a, I don't know.
And they've been relatively poor. To be honest,
Manchester exactly. United. They're scoring. I mean, outside of this match, they have been scoring, but like it's been a little. It's been a little.
Let's say this though, in favor of Bruno in the Bournemouth match, Bruno was taking virtually every shot, at least in the first half. It was everything ran through him, and he was trying to finish every move. Yeah. So that's at least encouraging.
Yes.
Like he's got his sights set better any given day, and you're looking at another 10-digit return from him.
Yeah. So Bruno is obviously, a contender. But so I don't want to just completely like go over that, but I am sort of curious who else might be sort of in the mix here, right? And I think that one way to go would be a different Arsenal midfielder, right? Like sort of you could take a punt a little bit here. Like, do you want to go Odegaard? Maybe slightly higher floor, although he hasn't really had a very high floor recently. You can go Martinelli or Trossard. I think that would be, those are all interesting options. Like none of them are sort of like a guarantee, but neither is Bruno, right? I mean, they just got held scoreless at home to Bournemouth. And so this idea that like Bruno is far and away the logical replacement, I think is a, I don't know that I really agree with that. Right. I don't love any of the Arsenal replacements is the problem here, right? Yeah. It's interesting actually. Martinelli is the top scoring midfielder now.
But he's having like a terrible season.
I know. Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists in the season. It's two seasons in a row for him too. Trossard, I think, has maybe a little more appeal. He has the higher ceiling, I would say, right? Possibly a lower floor, although I would expect him to be starting if Saka's out, because they're just going to need like the firepower, I think. And I mean, your boy Thomas Partey, Brandon, he's third. No, I'm just kidding. But
huge
guy. Yeah, Odegaard is way down there. He honestly has. It's 4 blanks in a row for him. It's not he's not the most inspiring pick. And then Havertz and Jesus, who do seem more fun, are obviously classified as forwards, and so they're off the table at least as like for like replacements. Again, if you have 2 transfers, you have a little more wiggle room here. I don't really love burning transfers like during the festive fixtures. It's already, I don't know. It's like, unless you're like replacing injured players, right? It just feels like there's already enough chaos. Like, I don't want to introduce more. Yeah. I don't want to take even more points out of my game week score, right? It's, like it can be very unpredictable around this time anyway, right? And so starting out at a deficit in a particular game week, you've got to feel super confident that those players are going to start. This actually brings me to a player that I do think is an interesting option in Luis Diaz. And the question with Diaz, who scored a brace, he is not, an all-star fantasy player in some ways, right? But he is one of the streakiest players in fantasy, right? And when he is on fire, he is amazing, right? An absolutely fantastic fantasy asset to own. He comes in at 7.4 million. Scored a brace today, has not necessarily been a locked-in starter, and I think this is really the problem here, because they play Leicester at home in game week 26, and if we could feel super, super confident that he was starting this match, I do like him a lot as a possible Saka replacement, but I don't think that's a guarantee, right? I would say Leicester at home, West Ham away are kind of the 2 strongest, like the strongest 2-match run for any squad for game weeks 18 and 19. But he just does not have Bruno levels of consistency in terms of starts, right? It really, I think he'll start one of those 2. And is that enough to go for him? I don't know, right?
And there's something that Slot has clearly tried to bring to Liverpool is pragmatism, and he's just not going to be so sentimental about people on hot streaks and all of this. He's like, okay, this Leicester match is honestly a perfect moment to rotate.
Yeah.
Because we got a long season still ahead. So I'm not sure that you could trust anybody other than Salah in that attack for a regular start.
Yeah. I don't think so either. And so it's kind of, it just makes, and even Salah, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine him ever getting rested, but I suppose it's possible. I mean, anything is around the holidays. Although I will say, you were asking me about my thinking process during the holidays. Yeah. In general, you just see a lot less rotation than you would expect. But the thing with Diaz, he's already being rotated. He's already being sort of brought in and out of the squad. And so that does knock his appeal a little bit, I think. Yeah. So, other contenders would be Anthony Gordon, who has looked pretty good recently. Maybe Jared Bowen, but Jared Bowen only has one good fixture, right? And then it kind of gets bad from there. So it's like, it kind of feels like all roads lead to Bruno, which is sort of a bummer, because I want to see a little more variety, but he does sort of feel like the logical move. I mean, there's no one in Man City you could trust, obviously.
No, Man City is just that's horrible. They're the one team we haven't mentioned are Spurs, and despite them being a punchline yet again in game week 17, you've got Son, Kulusevski, Madison, all potential fantasy gold there.
I know, but it's like you can almost knock them out one by one, right? It's like Madison. It's like, even when he does well, it's like he's getting pulled from these matches. It's like, or not starting, right? He get 57 minutes today, 11 minutes in game week 15. So 2 weeks ago. So didn't even it's not, there's no lock that he's going to start. And also, Forest away in 18 is probably, talk about the fixture difficulty rating system, right? That should probably be like a 2 or something, right? Instead of the 3 that it's classified. It's a pretty tough match. Although Wolves at home is pretty strong. Son just I don't know. He actually has been in pretty good form. It's so sad to see him kind of without the burst of speed that he used to have. But 2 goals and 2 assists in his last 3 matches. So there is, granted, 1 goal and 2 assists came against Southampton. So that has to be kind of basically the Russell Martin sacking match.
Mm-hmm. What about this, Josh? Yeah. Here's the last thing on Saka, perhaps.
Yeah.
Just bench him. If there's just going to be this flurry and you have enough, you have at least two people on your bench. Like, we're talking about how we had to make the choice to bench a guy as good as Morgan Rogers.
Right.
Can Morgan Rogers just step up and cover Salah until he's back fit in a month's time?
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't personally have the bench depth to do that and feel good about it. Right. Like, if I have a 10 million player who's probably not going to play for the next 3 weeks, it's just, I don't feel like I have the luxury to bench him. I've got to do something to solve the problem.
Right.
Now, is there any question of just going to mod over Bruno? Just like if you just like closed your eyes and didn't look at the prices, is there any argument for that? Probably not, but
I'm not sure. I didn't hate Ahmad's performance against Bournemouth, and he was linking up with Bruno. I think that's probably, if you're Amorim, that's your biggest hope right now, is just creating some more chemistry between Bruno and Ahmad. They seem to be the ones who most want to do something in that team.
Yep.
But still, just shrewd fantasy manager brain says Bruno has pens and more dead ball opportunities. No, Ahmad is on corners. Like, he takes all right-sided corners, which I think is a huge appeal for somebody in that price bracket. So he has some dead ball threat, but still Bruno just does seem like the higher ceiling player.
What about, I'm just sort of like casting about, trying to find players that are maybe a little, like, if you just want to be a little different, right? Like going to the holidays with somebody who's just a little unique, maybe like Morgan Gibbs White, perhaps. Like he's got a goal and 2 assists in the last 2 matches. They host Spurs at home, which I think we now have to consider one of the strongest fixtures for attacking players, right?
Their defense is so patched together right now.
It is,
from goalkeeper to center backs to even like without Udogie.
Exactly. You combine their style of play with the number of injuries, and it's a real, it's pretty devastating. Yeah. So he might be one that you could, consider. Semenyo, I mean, he's like one we've talked about him a lot on the pod, but he did, scored a goal in the away match at Man United. He's a player I really love watching play. Right, there's just a lot to like about him. And they have 2 home matches in 3, Palace and Everton at home, Fulham away in 19. And I think it's going to be hard for Fulham to keep a clean sheet in that match. I'd say he's almost certainly locked to start all 3 matches too. So that would be another one as well. And the appeal of someone like Semenyo would be if you want to take that extra money and upgrade one of your forwards, right? Like I don't know, maybe you don't have Isak yet, or like, I don't know, like, just like if you just want more money or bring in Trent, right? If you wanted the money to upgrade, like Kirkaz to Trent, like that would be one way to do that, would be to go with a sub 7 million midfielder.
Semenyo is so funny to me. I enjoy watching him play as well. I feel like he's been everyone's favorite player to talk about this season, even commentary, watching a broadcast loves talking about him. 2 points fewer on the fantasy season than Semenyo is Mikel Damsgaard of Brentford. Yeah. Have you thought about Mikel Damsgaard once this season?
I mean, you can see him. I mean, he's doing cool stuff. Yeah, I don't know.
Stuff.
Yeah, he's more like a consistent. It's like you wish he was 4.5 or 5 million. I guess he's only. He actually is 5 million. Wow, but it's, I don't know. It's like, let's just call him your classic high floor player, Brandon. Lots of floor there.
Are you talking about his hairline?
Yeah, still just 2 goals and 4 assists on the season. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think it's a little. I forget. He has kind of a distinctive look, doesn't he?
I'm joking, of course, of considering him an asset. It's just kind of a heat check on Semenyo. For no other reason than to just be negative, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. So is there anyone we're missing here? I mean, I do think that Bowen is kind of a fun shout. I wish they weren't playing Liverpool and Man City directly after playing Southampton.
But what were we just saying about Man City, Josh? I think
that's
that
true.
this
that's
is
true.
this really has to be rethought because
that's
City,
true. Liverpool is still a tough match. I mean, I know Spurs scored a couple, but
yes, certainly. I just think with the City thing, it's a very hard conversation now because I think we've all kind of run through is it that a certain player in Rodri is missing? Is something tactically is not right? Is it that the players are too old or too young? Is there not enough desire there? Have they won too much? And it is like a mixture of all of these things where there's no way this team's going to get any better anytime soon. So Bowen against Man City. Cool. I'm there. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. I'm trying to. I'm using my wife's computer because I'm having computer issues. And I'm getting like some pop-ups. That was throwing me off while we were talking there. It's a holiday week, Brandon. When a giant glass of water gets spilled on your computer.
Yeah, you're getting a little closer with your family these days.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we've got. We definitely have some options available to us. I guess like
there's no right answer. It sounds like Bruno, but there's technically no right answer.
He probably is the right answer, but I don't want to just close the door on everybody else. At least think it through and feel like you've come to it through like actual proper reasoning, right? And and I would say Bruno and Diaz are both excellent candidates. Diaz gets downgraded for me because I worry about whether he's actually going to start even as soon as midweek or as late as midweek or whatever. So other, piece of information from this weekend, you had 6 clean sheets on Sunday. Everton, Chelsea, Wolves, Bournemouth, Fulham, Southampton. Lots of surprises in there. Is there anything we can deduct from this, or was it just a fluke Sunday with all these clean sheets?
I don't know. Is it that we're at the midway point of the season and like tactics and team chemistry for some of these squads is finally starting to click? Particularly with Everton, you think Dyche is kind of like, okay, we're surviving only through Jordan Pickford and our back line, so let's just focus on this, which is kind of interesting. But I can't see game week 17 being a mark of suddenly it's all about the defense, because that's not what we've seen all season. All season, clean sheets have been so hard to come by. It just feels like a fluke to me that we happen to get so many this game week. Yeah,
that's what I think as well. Honestly, it just feels slightly. I mean, I'm just trying to I guess like we talked about with Everton already, they're quite strong at home. It seems like you have almost uniquely benefited from Michael Lang. I guess he's starting to pick up some ownership, but still,
I'm the only one. I would love that if
feels
I were
that
the
way.
Only one.
Yeah, I haven't brought in any Everton defenders yet, and I certainly would have benefited from it. Mm-hmm. It just feels a little bit fluky, honestly.
I mean, Wolves are so bad defensively, and Jose Sa was also just doing Sa things. Like when he came out of the box, and it just funny, and still they were able to manage a clean sheet. Fluke.
Yeah. I think the other, let's see, Palmer blanking. I guess that that did hurt some managers. I don't know. Again, just like. I don't really, it's like a lot of, it's like, it feels like we just got a lot of fluke returns this weekend. I mean, I don't know, like Palmer blanking isn't that crazy given that Everton have been strong at home, but I just don't really know what to say. I mean, it's sort of, like a weird mix of blanks this weekend and crooked score lines, right? You had Arsenal destroying Crystal Palace without Saka, and then Liverpool maybe somewhat more predictably with a really dominant match. Although it took them almost 30 minutes to get the first goal in that match. I mean, they were pretty dominant from the opening minute. I mean, Fraser Forster was. I don't know. They have to bring in somebody January 1st, right?
I feel like I've really hit something here. I want this to catch on. Fraser Forster is a G.I. Joe action figure, and he can only make saves if people pose his limbs in certain.
It's like it's like a foosball. Like it's like he's got to be just in the right spot.
Totally, no spins on Forster. That's against the rules. Yeah. I wonder though with Chelsea too. Like they are probably the youngest, best team in the league, and it's going to take a while for that team to develop the nous to break down a team like Everton as easily as we want them to. So between Palmer and Jackson and whoever's on the wings, it just kind of doesn't, like to your point, it doesn't surprise me that Palmer and team blanked against Everton.
Yeah, no, it didn't surprise me too much either. Although, yeah, I don't know. It was just a weird. I don't know. Like, I guess I can quit saying weird because it's not a very interesting thing to say. But yeah, I think and then I guess the other thing, which I don't even really know if there's anything to say, was just the Isak hat trick and the Salah, masterclass, and kind of same as it ever was. I mean, it feels like Isak, we all finally had to. In my head, I still have this idea that he's like a little bit of an inconsistent fantasy asset, which I feel like has been true in previous seasons. But this year, he really has been quite consistent throughout. And outside of missing a couple weeks with injury, I mean, looking back, he's got double-digit returns in 4 of his last 7 matches, right? And even the week before that, he had a 9-point return. So, going back to game week 9, he has scored oh my God, he has 9 goals and 4 assists, right? So it's he's been extraordinary.
I'll be real.
3 assists.
I'm going to be honest with our listeners here. And it's easy for me to say, admittedly, but I feel bad. I feel terrible for Isak captainers because
I know. I thought about that too.
You thought you won. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. Salah is he's never going to let you get away with it.
So let's move on, Brandon. Do a quick Patreon push here. It's right at the very end of the year. Thank you so much to everyone who supports the podcast throughout the entire year. Thank you to our newest Patreon supporters. We've got lots of new pledges in December. If you want to get ad-free podcasts, you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating, get access to the Discord as well, and lots of kit giveaway contests and mini leagues and et cetera, et cetera. It's a great community.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We had lots of fun on the Discord chatting during live matches, and join the Super League, QVC0ND. That's free for all of our listeners. You can find that auto join button too at alwayscheating.com. All right, to the business ahead, Josh. It's the festive. I guess the next round is the Boxing Day fixtures. So, have your Christmas ham. And dump the contents of your stocking on the floor and hug your parents, and then it's back to FPL, and it again starts with this narrative that we can no longer escape Man City, and it's like the immovable force against the. What is that idiom? The immovable object versus
immovable force versus the immovable object. Or now you've gotten I feel like I know it. If you hadn't done that construction, I would know it. But
all right, I'm just Googling it now. Immovable force versus an unstoppable object.
Right.
So anyway, I'm not sure if that's totally apt. Anyway, I have no idea what's going to happen in this match, other than probably it's just going to be very unsatisfying for the narrative.
Yeah, I agree. They're like, that's not even like, I'm actually like, I'm starting to even like lose interest in. It was fun for a while to watch them look so pathetic every single week, but they're just not a fun team, right? There's kind of nothing fun about them.
We lost a character in our story. That's never fun.
Exactly. It seems like they haven't bought a good they haven't made a good transfer in multiple years, it kind of looks like now. And it's starting to like really, even Gavardiol, who looked like might be a good story, is really like defensively, he just might not be good enough, right, for them to keep him. And so it's just, or to continue starting him long term. And so and so I don't know, I think this match, like, I don't know, Everton are probably going to win. Like I have no idea. Like, it's really hard to
if
even
Everton
say
could score on anyone right now, it's probably Man City. That's a fact.
That's exactly. And so I think in terms of the captaincy for the Boxing Day fixtures, it does feel like you again, I mean, it's a little bit like with the Saka to Bruno move. It's like there probably are some alternatives that we should be considering, but realistically, there's just no chance that I will be captaining anyone but Mo Salah for this match. And so I guess I'll be vice captaining Cole Palmer, and that's really template, and I'm sorry, but that's just what I'm planning to do for this
week. Look what Wolves did to Leicester at the King Power this weekend. It was over before it began for Van Nistelrooy, unfortunately. And in Liverpool at Anfield, when everyone's going to be in their like fancy dress and Santa hats and all of that, it is probably going to be another bloodbath. So Salah all the way. Maybe you could, if you do happen to have Luis Diaz and you're going to start him, I don't know. There's really no way to justify it, even with another Liverpool player. Putting the armband on, not on Salah.
If Saka were healthy, then I think Saka, Arsenal hosting Ipswich would be a contender. As it is, I don't mind moving Saka to one of these Trossard, Martinelli type of assets, maybe even Odegaard. You just have to acknowledge that it's a risk, but even then I wouldn't. I feel like just owning them would feel different enough. I wouldn't need to actually go ahead and
100%
captain them.
Yeah, totally.
So what are your planned moves this week? I mean, you have 2 transfers. I mean, for me, it's again, as I said before, I feel like I don't really have any luxury, but to move Saka on probably to Bruno. I feel like so blasé about it, but I do think it's probably the right move, and so I think I'm going to end up doing it in the end. What about you? What are you thinking for transfers this week?
I am kind of tempted to hold on to Saka, and I think I'm tempted to hold on to Saka simply so I don't have a choice, don't have to make a choice between Rodgers or Ahmad. I think I kind of feel like Rodgers is a bench option again this week, just because away from home for Villa, away Newcastle, who have been defending decently enough, and then Wolves, who again I don't think they're strong enough defensively. I think if Man United are going to get anything going, Wolves is a great team to play on Boxing Day for them.
Yeah.
So if Bruno comes in, maybe I play Rodgers over Ahmad because Bruno gives me that Manchester United coverage, so to speak.
Right. Yep. That makes sense. Yeah.
But after coming off my wild card, it went well enough. I feel really good about my defense. I can't imagine making any changes there. I guess then it's a João Pedro, Nicholas Jackson. They're both very much under the microscope for me. But there are no options that really like scream out, get me. Forest just have such a miserable run coming up. Well, actually, Forest do have a decent enough run. So, is Chris Wood an option again?
He never stopped being one. Really, I mean, he's been
he did have like a high XG chance this weekend that he just put right at the keeper. And then it's Everton, Wolves. After Spurs on Boxing Day, it's Everton, Wolves, Liverpool, Southampton, Bournemouth, Brighton.
Pretty good, honestly.
It's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, Chris Wood would be, maybe I'll even burn 4. I don't know. I have to kind of figure out what I'm doing with Jimenez now. I mean, I really would prefer to just never start him again. Right. And just solve that problem. So I could possibly burn 4. I mean, is that Spurs fixture so good now that it's worth, just bringing in Chris Wood on a hit? Like, I don't know, maybe. I think that's, I guess you could do it on a free, which I do think would be more appealing, honestly. I think you should really consider that. I mean, I don't know. Like, João Pedro, even with the Brentford fixture, it sort of feels like he's done as a fantasy asset. So,
right. So Saka to Bruno, João Pedro to Chris Wood is, that feels good.
Yeah. Has some appeal.
Upside.
Yeah, for sure. And so, and again, you never know if you're going to get a mystery benching or whatever, or any kind of, injury or just like rested.
Yeah, I think it was the first time I brought in Wood earlier this season. He was the first time he got benched all season.
Yeah. It's going to happen. Exactly. And when he is a good player, like he's had some really nice moments for Forest even in the Premier League. So, and so, all right, well, let's look at, we have a couple of questions here. Neymar Butland says, as an avid supporter of MFFA, make fantasy fun again, I've kept my faith with Haaland because A, I'm a City fan, and B, I have a feeling he's going to blow up in a good way. But I'm wondering if I'm overly sentimental. My eyes are blinded blue. My overall plan for the season was to build a team around Erling Braut Haaland, and he was always the focal point. If I sell him, may as well be a Spurs fan who cooks that chicken standing on the ball. I don't even know what that means. Like, is that I hope I didn't
like their logo. Spurs logo is
right. Okay, yeah, right.
On the ball.
So he said thoughts. Well, I mean, listen, there's no other forwards that are any good right now. If Saka's injured, so you don't have to kind of. The threemium thing never really worked, did it? We thought we'd get it, Brandon. It still hasn't really come to pass. It's a nice run up ahead for them, really. I mean, Everton, Leicester, West Ham. It's about as good as it gets for squads. It's just the whole problem. It's not a Haaland problem. It's unfortunately what's happened with Man City has made us realize that Haaland is just a somewhat more one-dimensional player than we want to ignore. Yeah, he's like the best. It's like he's an amazing. It's like a player who's like all he can do is shoot 3-pointers or something. I don't even, I don't know what like the
just to rub salt in the wound here for Neymar Butland, you compare him to Harry Kane in this moment. Harry Kane, when things were going tough, would just say, I'm going to go find the ball somewhere on this pitch. I'll drop deep, come in, just get involved.
Totally.
And Haaland's has just not been his game.
I'm not sure he's allowed to, right? For one thing, like even if he wanted to, right? I don't think that's like something that, Pep is and obviously it's worked. I mean, it's worked for 2 years in a row for Man City, but it's obviously not working now. And so I think, I think that it's, I think you might as well just stick with it now because they've got 3 great fixtures, and I understand. I mean, also like I don't know, like are you going to win fantasy this year? Is there a ton of money in your mini leagues? Like maybe it's fine to just be a fan and have a player that you can't necessarily support or that you can't necessarily like sort of justify from a pure statistical point of view. I mean, God, it seems like 3/4 of the people who play fantasy seriously now do everything from a statistical point of view, and none of them seem to be enjoying themselves, right? Yeah. And so it's like I'm not sure that it is like necessarily the way to play to completely check your fandom at the door.
Yeah, and there are a couple of interesting forward options that we didn't mention. Just thinking about the rest of the field with Duran for Villa. He basically looks like he's won that spot over Watkins, which it's just like So I feel bad for Watkins.
I know
coming off the Euros.
Yeah, I thought about adding him to the running order as well, and I think it was really just that they played Newcastle away in 18. Just felt like a pretty crummy fixture, but that's maybe a nice game week 19 transfer as well.
Yeah. And then Cunha is such an odd one, especially coming into game week 17, where he's been charged with conduct after I forget who they were playing, but that match in game week 16 where he assaulted the assistant coach on the opposition, and everyone's just kind of waiting for the ban to come through, which could be a week from now. We could still get a lot of games from him, and he's continues his goal scoring form.
And every time he scores, he gets 3 bonus. It's it's remarkable.
Yeah, that's wild. Really,
he's on like all these set pieces too. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it's I know.
Anyway,
I feel like I
guess like you've kind of convinced me there on the Haaland thing for Mr. Butland's here, and that I'm gonna come around, keep him. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, like at least look forward to the matches. I this week I felt like I had like my team was like a little bit template FC, and it's just like it's not as fun for me. Like and this is like maybe one of the reasons I like went down the road so much with alternatives to Bruno for Saka's. It's like it's fun to feel a little bit different. It's like a lot of times it's not going to work out to your favor, but what's the fun of it working out to your favor if it kind of seems to work out to everyone else's favor, right? Like I got a hat trick for my transfer this week. I got 22 points from my captain, and I'm on a red arrow, right? It's like so I don't really know. It's like I'm not sure that I don't know. So I don't really know what my point is here. It's just like play for yourself to a certain degree. So, all right, let's do one last question. Here's from Caleb. And Caleb asked about, should we be letting Jesus into our teams, or was it just a Palace thing? So, because I guess it was
Saka
two.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say 2 Palace matches, right? Because it was he scored a hat trick in the
cup match,
in the League Cup as well. Mm-hmm. So, was it like 4 goals and an assist against Palace or something like that?
It's not bad. It's not bad. And with Saka out of the team, I wonder if Havertz, who has kind of been playing the false 9 for Arsenal before Jesus came into this form, started with Jesus on the pitch. Yeah. Now with Saka being injured, does that even further cement this idea that Jesus is going to keep starting while Havertz can be on the pitch? And I'm curious about that. So I don't mind it. It's kind of fun to get a hot form player during the holidays.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Luis Diaz. Mm-hmm. It's just sort of they're not super reliable long-term fantasy assets, but they're good enough when they're in good form to own. And I mean, it's crazy to me that Jesus has scored. It was actually 5 goals, not 4. 5 goals in a week. That's probably more goals than he scored. Yeah, that's more goals than he scored in the Premier League all of last season, right? He scored 4 goals last season in the Premier League. He scored more than that in 5 days of matches. So
I gotta say, ultimately, I wouldn't be doing it personally, but it's fun to think about.
No, I wouldn't either. I don't know. For the Ipswich match alone, maybe, right? I mean, he's only 6.8 million, right? You can just move him on to somebody else the next week
up,
if you want.
Spit him out.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's the move. Maybe it's you bring in Bruno and then you take a hit on Jesus and hope that it's a full on slaughter. So not impossible, right?
No. Ipswich are not great right now.
Yeah, I mean, that maybe I actually like that more than Chris Wood, who's a better long term buy, but maybe not as fun, not as much upside.
Okay.
All right, well there you go, Brendan. I think that's good. It feels like we've gone for an hour plus. It feels like we've only done 15 minutes of pod in my head for some reason, but we've gone through the whole thing. So thank you for listening. You can tell I'm just not on my game tonight, Brandon. So strong apologies.
We're fine.
But thanks for listening. And Brandon, why don't you thank our producer patrons?
Oh, absolutely. Big thanks to our top tier, the top bloke tier. And there are some non-blokes in this list, and we salute you all. Thanks to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, Dave Wagner, Lodahl, our buddy Chris Howell, Andy Penn, Nick Wright, Lazaros Llanos, Jesse Halstead, Brian Kerr, Brian Chin, Bob Kuhn, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons, Terrence O'Donnell, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, as he does it, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Craig Jackson, Caleb Robbie, Brian Clark, Thomas Tisloff, Fro Jacobson, Gareth H., Shalin F. Kadaki, Arishi Nigam, Noah and Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Matthew Skinner, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Rune Sandberg, James Murraywood, James C., James Holland, Scully, Craig at Total Mass Tutoring, and Francis. Man, if you want to get involved in the Patreon, again, that's patreon.com/alwayscheating. Many different levels for your support. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your pods for free. That's free to you, and it helps us. Yep. Follow us on social media. All this information is available for you at alwayscheating.com. Josh, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays, and best of luck for the Boxing Day setup.
Same to you. And thanks everyone for listening. I think this is our last pot of the year. So we will see you again in 2025 as we kick off the second half of the season. Be lots to talk about, I'm sure. Talk to you soon.